up, you guys? This is Dark Shredder here, and this is the podcast of everything's anime reviews in 30 minutes or less. So, I've actually grown up loving the Dragon Ball franchise. I'm currently 20 and I want to say I've been watching it for the past, I want to say 10 years. I think I started around the time when I first watched Dragon Ball Z Kai when it was actually, you might not even remember this if you're young enough, but it was actually out on Nicktoons for a little while, which was actually very interesting. It came on in like the prime time hours, so to speak, and it was the clean version of the franchise. And some of you guys may even remember watching the American version of Dragon Ball GT, which actually so happened to also air on Nicktoons from time to time, and a couple other networks. And I actually really came to love that franchise from that moment on. Since then, I've managed to put everything in a timeline order. I've also managed to watch GT, Super, Dragon Ball Z. I have not watched as many of the original Dragon Ball series itself before, but I have gotten a chance to watch all of the movies, except for Dragon Ball Super Superhero, which is more recent, and you'd have to rent it from HBO Max or stream HBO Max or some other program in order to get access to it at this point, since it's not in theaters. But the point of today's episode is that I'm supposed to be reviewing the entirety of the franchise. So, how the franchise starts off is Goku, this young kid, is actually dropped down in a pod from the Saiyan homeworld, and eventually crash lands on Earth. Well, one of the main characters of the original franchise, actually adopts Goku and begins to fall in love with eating and martial arts, and he begins to learn how Earth works and that sort of thing. He gets his tail cut off to prevent him from turning into a great ape and all that, and it's really fascinating to watch the original series itself. And then you move on to Dragon Ball Z. Well, Dragon Ball Z is a continuation, but in this one, it's more of like open style martial arts rather than confined to a certain few areas here and there, like the arena and the ring and all that. This one has a little bit more diversification in where they're actually fighting. So now you see him fight Vegeta and Frieza and all this, and it's really fascinating how it works. One of the big pros to how good that makes it good, I should say, is that the whole franchise itself, even though GT and Dragon Ball came out before Z and Super, they were it's as if they're all made to fit into timeline order. For those who are unaware about Dragon Ball GT, you'd be surprised to find out that while they had no intention of making Dragon Ball Super a spin-off of Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT is actually technically a spin-off of both Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Super. If you guys listen to the American theme song, which is I would call one of the greatest rock/rap based theme songs of the animes that I've viewed so far. It actually, if you listen to the lyrics, in one of the lyrics, if you pay close attention, it says the tournament is over. Now this can be taken many ways, but this is when Goku is an adult and is turned back into a kid again. So at this point in his life, you know, he's already fought Vegeta and all that in GT. He's sort of working with Vegeta and Future Trunks and all that. And his granddaughter Pan, who actually is older in GT, is actually really a baby in Dragon Ball Super. And so you can kind of draw the connection. You can kind of draw the connection at what I'm saying here. That when they say the tournament's over, they're referring to the ending of Dragon Ball Super. They're referring to that last tournament of power that they actually did. And this is where you begin to see. Wait a minute. They didn't intend to put Dragon Ball GT after Dragon Ball Super, but subsequently, by the way that it all worked out, it actually did. I guess you could call it quote unquote mistake that it subsequently ended up falling at the end of the timeline in that particular timeline order. And actually, some of the movies have slightly variated timelines, and actually Dragon Ball Super Broly is unique. And Dragon Ball Super Broly is unique because Dragon Ball Super Broly does not start where Bio Broly takes off, where he's dead at the end of the movie. That's not where it picks up. It starts from the very beginning where Broly is created, and then Goku and Vegeta fight Broly again. But this time, they save Broly instead of killing him. So it's actually so Dragon Ball Super Broly is really unique in the timeline because it's a reboot that really doesn't actually tie to the original three Broly movies. However, aside from that, every other movie is in the proper timeline order. It's just that particular one, and that's actually also a con of the series itself. It's one of its flaws. If you want to try and reboot a character, you can't reboot the franchise character or the franchise movie itself without doing what the Super Broly movie did, and throwing this and straying away from the timeline. You would have to take the original timeline, the people that are dead and the people that are alive, and build a continuation based off of that. That's one of the flaws that this series has. I could really care less, but there are some who may argue that is a major drawback for them and might deter them from watching it because they want to see that timeline progression in its proper order. Now we get to the Dragon Ball Super series, and this is where my review is kind of laid back, but it's also kind of scathing. I'm gonna tell you why, and it's not scathing in a bad way. I'm gonna tell you why it's scathing in a good way. It's actually scathing in a good way because and I'm highly critical of this. Dragon Ball Super is kind of underrated, and it doesn't get as much appreciation as it should for many reasons. One, there are new characters and new powers for the first time that we would not, if they had stuck with Z and GT, we otherwise would not have gotten. Also, with the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie, we got a new form of fusion, which the new form of fusion was actually done without actually needing to use the actual earrings that they normally use, which is really a first. So they actually mastered how to do that. We also got Ultra Instinct, and if you guys are unaware of the Tournament Saga, we also got some new universes. And there are even some universes, like universes 13 through 19, that are not actually in the series, but they're referenced several times. And in fact, actually, there are books out at this point in time that detail what will happen farther down the line. The whole premise of the books is that each episode of Dragon Ball Super, GT, all that is based off of a particular segment of the book. They haven't started on 13 through 19 Saga. If they did, it may be its own series, it may not be. If they did do the 13 through 19 Saga, the key points in that is it would be a continuation of the timeline, which is good. It's moving forward on the timeline. It's not doing what the Super Broly movie did. But it's also my point with that particular saga that I'm getting to is that that saga is really based on the events of the previous previous saga for the tournament. At the end of the tournament, Android 17, and this is a spoiler, so you might want to turn away if you're not haven't watched it yet. Android 17 wishes for all the universes to come back, not using Shenron, but the most mightiest version of Shenron, the universal Shenron. And when he does that with the universal Dragon Balls, the universal Dragon Balls are not bound by constraints of time and reasoning and logic like the ones on Earth and Namek and in other and the smaller ones in other universes are. They are not bound by that. They're not bound by any constraints. And so by him wishing that all the universes were back, he didn't specify which universes. That's where the book picks up where they left off with that wish. The universes that 13 through 19 are actually not combatants, and are you can call it a mixed bag like all the other universes are. The other universes, the main ones, are mixed bag. You have good people, you have evil people. However, 13 through 19 is 100% bad people. There's nothing but bad people in those universes. So what had happened, the reason why they were erased was because at the beginning when they had first started, the Grand Zeno or Grand Zenos, depending on if you count the future Grand Zeno that's now his play buddy, actually they actually decided, hey, we're gonna erase them. Why? Because they tried, according to the books and the series, the lore, they tried to commit treason on the supreme leader of the universe, and this was not welcomed upon. And even the brothers and sisters of the angels themselves were sort of wrapped up in this plot. And so what he did was he erased 13 through 19 completely. And the reality is they were supposed to stay erased, but they did not stay erased because when he made that wish with no constraints, in the books it brought them back. And so now all of the malicious universes are back out. And in one scene of the book, if you look at the pictures that are in the books, you can actually see Goku kind of chained up. This is really dark, and it gets darker from there because we find out in a surprise twist that, so another spoiler, so if you want to skip this part, it's only going to take me 4 seconds to spill it. You might want to skip now. We find out that Golden Frieza is actually now leading one of the universes. Turns out he actually, in the books, dispatched one of the gods of one of those malicious universes after he left Dragon Ball Super Broly from the ending events. He had found his way to those universes, and that's how he rose to power as their lead destroyer. And so now, what's likely to happen is you have this 6, I would call it 6 or 7 stage boss encounter where you've got to be where it's like the inverted spire in Destiny 2. You have to try and beat all these destroyers, and I feel like the series would kind of elaborate on that a little bit, but that's where my review of that is kind of scathing in a good way. It expands on the timeline, and the events that are included in those particular episodes. You really get a lot more power-ups, a lot more information as to what's going on in the future, past, all this other stuff. It really comes to light in that particular series. And so then we get our movies. And I know most of my stands have already watched the majority of the movies. If you have not watched the movies, then please go see the movies. The movies are outstanding actually. They are really outstanding. The movies, they're probably better than the series in many ways. Now, the live action movie, I have to say, live action movie, it sucked bad. The cartoon movies were better. I'm gonna be blunt, the live action movie sucked, but there's a reason why the live action movie sucked, because the way that they did those characters and the storyline in that movie was so tampered from the original, so altered that they altered it too much, and it basically ruined the movie. So the live action movie sucked, and I'm not the only one that feels that the live action movie sucked. I'm not the only one. The live action movie was terrible, but the cartoon movies are so much better. Dragon Ball Super Broly gets my over the top respect out of all the movies, not because of the timeline shift. I'm still upset about that, but I'm actually, it's the dynamics of the fighting, the dynamic audio, the dynamic animation of the fighting. And what that means is they took the audio from the fighting and took the animations and all that, and they really made it immersive and more in depth than the other movies. Like when you hear the punches in the movie, like instead of hearing the smack, you hear the smack, but it's like the after pitch of the bass in that smack. Like you're in spatial sound, like you have a subwoofer or like bass or whatnot. It's the movie itself that has that quality, like you would listen to music in your car with bass, with rap music bass. It has that sort of quality to it that just makes it all around an immersive experience. You get really immersed in the fighting, especially when Broly and Gogeta go head to head. That was the selling point for me, and the animation. The animation was good. My favorite part of the animation was when they actually were fighting, and they were so powerful that they shattered space-time, and then he went to super blue mode, and he smashed him again, and then he smashed back into reality just that quickly, like glass shattered, and they were back on the frozen planet again, which was very, very interesting. That was just something that I thought was very interesting with the animation on that. And they also did a nice job with kind of like the comic book style animation when he powered up inside the time loop that they broke into. You could see like the gray streaks, like it was like a comic book strip kind of look before it actually went back to the standard like movie picture look that it had. It was really interesting. It was really interesting actual thing that they did with that. So yeah, it was really fun. Alright, so anyway, that is my review for the Dragon Ball franchise. I hope to do more anime reviews in the future. Gotta get another laptop, but you know, because my laptop broke, I'm recording my desktop right now, but hopefully I will get around to that. If you guys have not already donated to the podcast, please consider donating, because it really helps out the podcast a lot. Now, I just literally broke something, so which I actually technically need to record my podcast when I'm out and about. So I don't know. I mean that was that would actually that I mean me needing equipment would actually be one of the greatest reasons I could give. Aside from the benefits of getting to enter into donator giveaways and that sort of thing, which I do want to say that the giveaways that I have planned for this season, they're not exclusive to donators, but the donators who are supporters will probably get significantly better prizes when they do happen. So please keep a lookout for the giveaways at some point. It might not be in this. It might not be announced in the episodes. It will actually might be announced on the Twitter page when they do occur. So keep an eye out for both. I'm gonna try and do one sometime after the end of the season. If you guys pay attention to my Twitter page, it's for everybody can enter into the non-donator giveaways, but the donators get more. I will say they get more than one drawing, so they get 2 drawings instead of 1. Plus, if you do the donator donator or the support, then you get another giveaway essentially at some point in the near future where it's just for donators and supporters, and they get a better prize. Basically, you'll basically get like 2 giveaways instead of 1 every so often, and you'll get 2 entries into the non-donator ones, plus you'll get better prizes for supporters in those giveaways, which is actually very interesting. And I don't have tiers for them; they're all the same. If you could donate 99 cents for the podcast, and you guys will be entered. And if you guys do retain the donator status once you donate a cumulative amount of $10, you're automatically in there for life. Like if you donate $9.99 as the top tier donator, and you donate twice, you're automatically in the list for life. You never get kicked out of that list. So you guys could pay 20 or 10. You might even pay $9.99 and I'll be like, hey, you pay $9.99 to subscribe or support. You guys have 1 cent less. Round up and give it to you for life. So you guys do have quite a few incentives, and I'm working on getting a lot more prizes and a lot more incentives. But you guys got to hit that support button because it really helps. So yeah. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. That is all for me. I will see or hear you guys in either my YouTube channel or the next podcast episode.